FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, intersection businesses. Are we wiping away an apparent threat to public safety or killing the eater food sector? And in the second watch, more water storage for Kingston. What options are on the table? For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on what is to be done with the vendors and windshield wipers at road intersections? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program. But before all of that, here's I quote.
All right, today's I quote says, "There's no such thing as an unwinnable race."
I wonder. Good morning, Joker.
Good morning, good morning.
No such thing as an unwinnable race.
Unwinnable race.
All right, I'm going to leave that one alone. The first watch will be back after this break.
Purchasing a vehicle is a lot more attainable with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan. You'll be able to have your loan processed fast and hassle-free. We make it affordable with low interest rates. Your payments are manageable with up to 10 years to repay. Owning a new vehicle is comfortable with up to 100% financing. With a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, your next ride is ownable and insurable. With discounts on auto insurance, with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, you'll be able to own the car of your dreams.
Want to upgrade your home but don't know where to start? Check Home and Things. We have the deals that will do the work for you. Get unbeatable deals on tiles, bathroom fixtures and vanities, faucets, windows and doors, plus so much more. Enjoy big savings and visit Home and Things at 17 Old Hope Road or 68.5 Constant Spring Road and get deals that will work for you.
Be heard, be seen by your audience on Love 101 Radio and on social media. Call Love 101 for advertising rates that fit your needs. Exposure for your event, your business, concerts, church activity, civic events, seminars and conferences, job vacancies, specials, and more. Let Love 101 help you get your information out there. Call Love 101 FM now and talk with our sales and marketing experts and get the reach you need. Call 876-968-9596 or 876-968-9597 and ask for our sales and marketing department Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plus.
Be heard, be seen by your audience on Love 101 Radio and on social media. Call Love 101 for advertising rates that fit your needs. Exposure for your event, your business, concerts, church activity, civic events, seminars and conferences, job vacancies, specials, and more. Let Love 101 help you get your information out there. Call Love 101 FM now and talk with our sales and marketing marketing experts and get the reach you need. Call 876-968-9596 or 876-968-9597 and ask for our sales and marketing department Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. or email love101fm@gmail.com. Love 101 FM, radio and social media platforms, making it happen for you.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, if you have driven a vehicle, you perhaps know what it is to contend with aggressive windshield wipers at major intersections. Coming out of the latest National Security Council meeting, it was reported that the council is set to tackle this issue with the hope that the proposed initiative will help to bring back public order and safety. Well, to discuss this and other related issues, we have online so far Kedra Folks, attorney at law. Good morning to you, Miss Folks.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining us this morning. Now, we're talking about the windscreen wipers at the intersections, especially, and the apparent threat that some people believe in terms of public safety, as against the fact that many of them, that's their bread and butter. Can you remind us, if any, what are the laws that are already in place which may address these concerns?
All right, so one legislation that comes to mind readily is the Towns and Communities Act. A very archaic legislation. It talks about chariots and horses and all of these things. But more to the point, it also speaks to persons who are idle in public places, which includes roads and streets. And that legislation provides that where they are observed, a constable can apprehend such a person, take them into custody and before the court. However, the penalty before the court is a whopping sum of $1,000.
Yeah. And that was upgraded a couple of years ago.
Oh, it might have been, but I'm just telling you based on my recollection that it was $1,000.
And that's it, Miss Folks? Nothing else addressing these concerns in the law?
But you see, the thing about it is that, and this is something that I've actually seen on Spanish Town Road before, when there was a roundabout, I observed, I was in traffic one day and I observed a young man, a windscreen wiper, walk up towards the back seat of a coaster bus where a passenger was on their phone, and he just snatched the phone and ran off.
Right.
And in those circumstances, there are other aspects of the criminal law that would come into play, because that is a criminal offense. He just stole somebody's phone.
Yes.
Right. So there are other aspects of the law that can apply, but based on the prevalence of the windscreen wipers, right? We know that they're not getting more than $50 or $100 each time they wipe a windscreen. Recently, two of them was wiping the windscreen for me, the front one, the back one, and I gave one of them $100 and said that's all that I have, and they said they were gonna share it. So sometimes these instances really highlighting other social problems that we might have, because of course there are persons that are just idle, right? And they just want something to get a meal and then they can go about being idle, right?
Yes.
They don't necessarily want a 9 to 5.
Right.
But how many of these people are resorting to that because they can't find jobs, because the factories are closed, they're low skilled, they're unskilled? You're not going to find them in an office, but the work that they can do might not be available to them, right? For other reasons as well. They might not have IDs, so sometimes if you think a little deeper about the issue, yes, it's a legal problem, but it's also a social problem.
Hearing you loud and clear. What about those who would seek to wipe your wind shield without your permission, or splash in the water or on your windshield without your permission.
Yes, happens a lot. And you know what they do sometimes when they tell them no, they actually splash the water on like the driver window. So you know you have no windshield wiper there. You understand? It basically is like an act of protest to
Wow.
say that perhaps they're entitled to wipe your windscreen for $50, right?
Yes.
The thing about it is that it's a hustle, right? It's a hustle. So you can't expect good customer service. It's a hustle and it attracts people who lack skills, social skills being one of them. And so it's easy for them to resort to antisocial behaviors and responses. And that is why it's such a nuisance, because I'm sharing these things with you because I've experienced it.
Me too.
They walk up to a female driver.
Not
all right,
as
so a
female,
male
of
driver
course.
may be in front of me.
Yes.
They walk past that person and come to me. He would have said no. They walk past and come to me in my car. Because I'm a female and I say no, before they walk away, they either use something like your car, the wiper thing that they have, or they spray the water all over the window.
Yes.
You understand? So it's just about what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with.
And males experience it as well, perhaps not to the same degree. But so even that, I mean, wiping your windscreen, splashing water, there's nothing specifically in the law that addresses those concerns. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they haven't created any. There are nuisance, but a nuisance in tort is it's not in the ordinary sense of the word nuisance. They're an annoyance, but in tort law, a nuisance is where something escapes, from like a private place into the public thoroughfare and creates damage, something like that. For instance, if you have a pool and you're filling it and it overflow into the streets. So the nuisance that the law protects or speaks to is not that kind of nuisance that we're experiencing from the windshield wipers.
Wow. So a lot of it is really subjective in terms of our law enforcers. That it's how they look at it, the individual policeman or woman at a given time. Is that what it's left up to?
Well, you see, the Town and Communities Act speaks to people being idle and disorderly, right? So when we
determine idleness, KJ folks. That's what I'm driving at. Is it a bit subjective?
Yes, I would imagine so, because I guess they would want to say that is their bread and butter, so it's not idle.
Yeah.
But it's how it is done. I think a lot of it has to do with how it's done, because you do have someone will come up to you and they're polite about it, right? And so you're willing to support the business then, as they would say. But for the most part, it's just the deportment, how they approach it. It's almost like a badmanship kind of thing, like we not have no work and you have to support it,
Yes.
So I guess that is really the crux of it. But it is a problem, a really big problem.
Yes. And of course, when we look on what's going on, well, it's not only at intersections, right? It happens at just stoplights anywhere.
Yes.
Or even no stoplight, no intersection at all, eh?
No, I normally see them at intersections where the vehicles come to a halt, because it's a strategic kind of undertaking. The vehicles have to come to a standstill for you to be able to wipe the windscreen. So,
any concerns about the age of these? I mean, what's the demographics of these windscreen wipers? Any concerns there with the law?
Yeah, man, definitely, because it implicates child labor. So you know that 15 is the age for formal admission to work, right? And the work that a child is able to do, even with permission, where if they're involved in certain like artistic performances and stuff, is work that it does not compromise the child's emotional well-being, their physical well-being, that kind of thing, right? And being out there on the road, like a parent now endorsing or co-signing something like that, is very concerning. That is a child that is in need of care and protection. You do have young children on the road wiping windscreen, and that makes them very vulnerable. Somebody could be preying on them. A predator could snatch a child in a situation like that, because the child is just there in the public thoroughfare.
Tell you what, Kedra. Yeah, hold that thought, because I want us to say a little bit more about that. We're up on a break. We'll be right back.
This This Father's Day, let your words speak love. Love 101 FM invites you to be part of Pages for My Father, a celebration of the quiet strength, faith, and presence of our dads. Simply send us a letter 100 words or less about your father in a WhatsApp message or a 1-minute voice note. We may read or play it on air as we honor fathers across Jamaica. Submit now to our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125 as we celebrate fathers with love. Be sure to put Pages for My Father as the heading so we can easily identify. Then listen for the feature during Love in the Morning, Morning Express, and Alive. Then on Father's Day, Sunday, June 15, throughout the day, and see if yours made the cut. Pages for My Father. Let's celebrate the great men in our lives. We're doing it on the family station. Love 101.
Don't give up on your hopes and your dreams is what he tells us. To be grateful and kind is what he's shown us.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy Scent Beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
We've seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
Always a good move when you're moving with Grace.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and this is the first watch. We are looking on the windshield wipers and the possible threat to public safety, while on the other hand, we are wondering if by some of the intended actions by authorities that would kill the eater food sector. And in so doing, we have online, Keja Folks, attorney at law, who has been really enlightening us and informing us in regards to the concern. So before the break, we're talking about the children and the law, children perhaps involved in the wiping of these windshields. Please continue.
Right. So in terms of child labor, child labor speaks to a child under the age of 16 being engaged for remuneration, right? So if a parent, for instance, after school, or a lot of times it's during school hours, you see them anyway, they're out there in the public thoroughfare, the law requires that child to be in school. They're to be educated up to the age of 16 years of age. And so that has implications for child labor and the welfare and safety of the child. And so a police officer who observes a child at a stoplight wiping the windshield is able to take action in conjunction with the CPFSA to ensure that child is protected, right? Because the understanding from the law is that if it is that the child is being properly cared for and protected, they wouldn't need to be in a public thoroughfare trying to hustle.
Is there an obligation then on the part of us as motorists to report such concerns to the authorities?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a concern for everyone because, a child who is so exposed can be exposed in other ways that are deleters to that child's proper development. Because if you think about it, and when I have discussions about child labor, I always make the distinction between, for instance, a family that has a shop. And when the child comes home from school, they might be under 16, but you send them in the shop so that they can learn to make change because that's helping to develop mathematical skills. So to my mind, that's not child labor. That is also helping the child to grow and develop, right? But if you're going to have the child in a hazardous situation, even persons who do higgling, it is not appropriate for you to have that child. A lot of people do it, They have the child assisting them because people
that's what they're learning. Definitely. That's what they're learning in the process, mathematics and social skills.
Right. But the thing about it is that if you're, for instance, a higgler in a marketplace, the exposure of that child to all sorts of people. You have to be mindful of that, right? A lot of times you see them though, the parents are, they're close to the parents and persons will be minded to patronize because, in your mind, the child is just trying to help to supplement the family income, even though that shouldn't be their responsibility. And this is their lunch money to go to school tomorrow. So it's a level of parental oversight. A child just out in the business or affair that cause what concern. Who is making sure that this child is not gonna be the target of a predator? So those are some of the concerns. So absolutely, if a child is observed wiping a windshield, that child has unmet needs, right?
Should report.
And that child, sorry, I cut you.
No, go ahead. Go, man. Go ahead.
Yes, and that situation should be brought to the attention of the authorities.
Yeah. Now let's look on the other end of the spectrum, KJF folks. The National Security Council reportedly intends to remove these wipers from the intersections, as well as provide them with skills training, mental health services where necessary. Will this solve the problem, especially when one considers that this is not the first time? It's not the first time that we are having this initiative.
I think it will help because, as I said, there are persons there who want more for themselves, but they're just doing what they can in order to subsist, right? But to complement that initiative, there has to be an effort to ensure that you don't take them off the street and try to engage them and not have them idle, only for others to go out there, right? So it has to be like a multi-sectoral approach, going to our communities and ensure people are being skilled. It's not just, it's good that they're targeting them, but there's others like them. That's the point. It's just that those are more obvious because they're in our face, but there are others who are just idle. You understand? And looking for opportunities to sometimes just engage in criminal activity because it is, it gives them immediate gratification without too much effort.
But
right?
there are those who are arguing that I think the YMCA had a similar initiative years ago, and was it the Kingston Parish Church or St. Andrew Parish Church? I don't remember. And what has happened? I mean, over the years, apparently these things do not work long term.
Perhaps because of lack of funding, right? Which is why the churches generally need to be involved because wherever the resources are, the fact of the matter is that when people go idle, they are not contributing to GDP. Now that I really understand financial, the financial mechanisms, but everybody needs to contribute, right? In order for there to be the tax pool to grow, in order for certain amenities to be available. So once people are idle and you're not contributing to that, then that has to be a concern for those of us who are contributing because we're not a welfare state, but in different ways, we still have to ensure the welfare of these people. You understand?
Yes.
So churches, where they have those initiatives, a lot of them have evening classes, they should reach out to the community. It's one thing about ministering to people in a religious way, but let's also make it very practical, right? Persons in the communities who can do evening classes and try to bring up people. And not everybody is a book and pencil person, and which is why it's important that we redirect them. We have initiatives that redirect them to other skills, other skill sets that they can use. We need plumbers. Sometimes you need a plumber, you can't find one. You understand? What about that? What about the electricians? What about the other tradesmen?
Yeah.
And perhaps the tradesmen in the community who need to start mentoring these young men. Back in the day, summertime, you see young people working in the woodwork shop and all of that. No, those people tell you that they can't find anybody to work because there are other things that give them something in their hand, and they might get $10 today and $0 tomorrow. They're satisfied with that.
Yeah, so true. And I'm still on the whole point of the National Security Council reportedly intending to remove them from the intersections. Now, there might be those who argue that scooping them off the streets like that, regardless of their deeds, is unfair to the decent, law-abiding windshield wipers. The good suffering for the bad. What's your response to that?
That has to happen sometimes. Right? That has to happen sometimes.
It has to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen sometimes because the thing about it is that the whole nature of the undertaking lends itself to a lot of deviant activity, right? In addition to which, it creates an issue for public safety because sometimes they're out in the road almost like obstructing you, all of these things. And then you're going to have an insurance claim when somebody definitely steps in your pathway. It's all sorts of things. So it's just something that is not necessary. Because I don't know any vehicle being made without wipers. So I just don't understand the logic of the profession to begin with.
But are there any possible legal implications for authorities doing that? Taking them off the streets just like that?
It's not just like that. So the Town and Communities Act allows for them to be apprehended.
Oh, back to the idle thing there.
Right. Yes, because it is recognized as a threat to public safety and public order. Right? So it's that is the genesis for that kind of action. So but I would not support like charging people and letting them have a record because that is just making a bad situation worse.
Okay.
But if you think that you're gonna use the reach of the law to get them off the road so that you can redirect them to something that is more wholesome and rewarding, then that is definitely something that I would support because you understand people's condition, but you also understand that you don't supporting them sometimes doesn't look like endorsing them remaining in that condition. Sometimes you have to do a little tough love. You understand? Put you up in the back of a police vehicle, but we're signing you up for some upskilling kind of activity.
But yeah, some real decent windshield wipers out there, so they ask you and seek your permission before they engage in the process. Just taking them off the road like that, putting them in the same thing without their consent.
No, it's not. No, if it is that you have violated, there's an offense that you have committed. Then the law, that's what you have exposed yourself to. So that's why I'm saying that it's not about criminalizing people in a desperate situation. Let's assume that they're all desperate and not by their own choosing, right? But it's about using the law to bring about social change. So it's about redirecting. So somebody like that, well-mannered, make sure he's clean, he treats it like a job, right? And and carries out that activity with a level of dignity, right? And those people are very outstanding when people are, just how they deport themselves. Somebody like that needs an opportunity to do better for themselves. They are deserving of better. They conceive themselves as being better. So even though you see them wiping the windscreen, the way they carry themselves and all of that, the way they engage with the public, tells you that this person is meant for more.
Yes.
But left to their own devices, they are not able to access that. So if it is that you can show them something and show them an avenue, and they'll probably tell you, I've tried and failed before. But you have a mechanism in place, a support mechanism in place that can help them to say, okay, you're going to go and get this skill. I'm going to give you a stipend to go. So you don't have to wipe windscreen, right? Something like that. It might not look nice, but at the end of the day, it will be worthwhile.
Yes. And as you mentioned, end of the day, we are drawing to a close in terms of time. What's your word then to the motorists out there when they encounter these windscreen wipers in terms of response that are appropriate?
Well, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that, because because sometimes they really annoy me, and I try to find a way. Like for instance, if I'm slowing down, I will leave a little space. So as they get to me, I just drive forward, right?
Yes.
Because but the fact of the matter is that just understand that the depravity of circumstances and probably mindset that might have led somebody to that situation. So how you engage is very important. You don't want a bad situation to escalate, right?
Yes.
Just remain polite regardless of if they go against your wishes and still want to touch your car, your property, and just leave a situation. And if it's a child, definitely you take the next step and make a report to the nearest police station to say there's a child out there, and I think that you need to intervene in that situation.
Well said. A fitting note on which to end our discussions. Thank you so much, KJ folks, for joining us. Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
We jail. Bang, anything possible with a little savings in your hand. Save so you
Now
can.
the time by Jen Bank is
7:30.
The police are the gateway to our criminal justice system. As first responders to crime and disorder, they stand on the front line of justice.
Yes.
They uphold the law, they protect lives, and safeguard rights. By investing in our law enforcement professionals, leveraging cutting-edge technology, and maintaining a balanced approach between crime control and crime prevention, we have set a strong foundation for sustained crime reduction and public safety. The tide has shifted. Our police officers, with the support of the government, under the leadership of this Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness, remains resolute in efforts to secure Jamaica and Jamaicans. Their presence brings order. Their actions build trust.
Yes.
The police are not just law enforcers who move among us. They are the fundamental pillar of the nation state.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Lace up and get ready for a run to remember through the lush True Juice Orchards in Buckwalk. It's the 10th annual True Juice 5K Run Walk, Sunday, June 8, 2025. Let's make this 10th anniversary bigger and better as we raise funds for the Linstead Hospital. It's going to be special with exciting surprises in store. Register now at truejuice5k.com. Entry fee, only $3,000. Each participant will receive a free 5K t-shirt. Follow at True Juice on Instagram for more details.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy Scent Beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
The name you trust to be your friend, to be a partner by your side. For generations we have been the one you trust as your financial guide. Sagicor, building trust for generations, helping hopes and dreams to grow, building our nation. Sagicor's the name you know. Sagicor.
Sagicor, celebrating 55 years.
Building trust for generations.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing in the Observer. Jamaica's leadership of CARICOM to focus on people, partnerships, and prosperity. Also in the Observer, Haiti among 12 nations targeted by U.S. travel ban. In the Gleaner, U.S. vetoes UN Security Council resolution demanding immediate Gaza ceasefire. And also in the Gleaner, NIS records $52.2 billion, that's with a B, in contributions. Loop News, ODPEM fully equipped for active hurricane season, and citizens are urged to heed advisories. And then finally, cops step up search for second suspect. Charges laid on man in terms of 14 guns found in Kingston. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. And coming up next, we read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on what is to be done with the vendors and windshield wipers at road intersections? We're asking to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Me just never did I get through with no work, and me did I get desperate. Till one day me see one ad, but them want somebody for work at a massage parlor. Trust me, the place was nothing like them advertised. From the very first day, I had to be giving much more than massages.
Verify the legitimacy of job advertisements with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. To report suspected cases of human trafficking, call the nearest police station, 119 or 888-PROTECT. A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Join the conversation that matters this Thursday, June 5, on the truly marvelous program To Have and to Hold. Tune in for a meaningful and eye-opening episode with Dr. Colleen Beckles and Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint as they discuss the topic, dealing with an overly sensitive spouse. This discussion will offer real insight, wisdom, and practical guidance to strengthen your relationship. Don't miss it this Thursday, 5:30 p.m. on the truly marvelous program To Have and to Hold with Dr. Colleen Beckles, only on the family station, Love 101.
Thank God for Calvary. Thank Him for His Son.
Hearts and Hands presents a fundraising concert for Reverend Glenn Graham, Part 2, featuring Kukudu, Prince Hall, Orville Sutherland, Derek McFarlane, Desmond Saunders, Sister Arlene, Sebastian Braham, Unity Singers, Utrecht Tingle, music by DJ Chinny, MCs Nadine Blair and Markland Action Edwards. Admission 2,000 pre-sold, 2,500 at the gate. Ticket outlets at the Brownstown Pharmacy beside KFC. Refreshment on sale. For more information, call 876-885-1055. Friday, June 27, 7 p.m. at the Brownstown Tabernacle, Brownstown, St. Anne. Let's do this for Reverend Glenn Graham. A Love 101 endorsed event.
I was so undone.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jokal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What are your thoughts on what is to be done with the vendors and windshield wipers at road intersections? Jokal.
All right, so Cherry in Spanish Town says these windshield wipers and vendors, they need to learn self-discipline and show respect to others and respect for themselves. Sister Bev from Kidston Town sends a voice note. Let's hear from her.
Good morning. I just came into the room and heard the conversation about the windscreen wipers. It would sound like they want to take them off the road. What, you have some nice ones, but Lord, my daughter afraid to drive at a certain location when she's going to work. It's like them around the corner waiting, and because she's a woman, and they swarm her, and all of them want money from her. She's so afraid. Boy, may I tell you, it's not nice. It's not pretty. Some of them not pretty at all.
Yeah, in the pretty at all. Thank you, Sister Bev. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. We now segue into the second watch. And every year as we head into summer, we worry about running out of water in our taps, and yet the demand for the precious commodity keeps growing. It's just another problem that has for many years been needing a solution. Well, the National Water Commission will reportedly undertake a comprehensive review of the options for expanding the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam, both located in Kingston. Does that mean that finally the solutions to our water supply problems have been found? And what are these options that are on the table? Well, to answer these and other related questions, we have joining us the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Good morning to you, Minister Samuda.
Good morning to you.
Great.
Good morning, Christmas.
Great. Good to have you on again. Well, To date, Minister, can you tell us what progress has been made and what plans are in place to address the aforementioned concerns?
Well, the first thing to note for your listeners is that I know there's a perception of water shortages in summer. Our driest period, however, is actually between February and May. So February is the driest month in Jamaica for all parishes and has been so for the last 30 to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So generally you enter drought towards the end of January, and it is broken by the May and June rains. Now, what has affected or I think exacerbated water distribution issues during the summer, which may give that impression, is really the heat factor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult when you're in an area that has water shortages or has distribution challenges, and it's just so hot. So I think that may trigger the perception that summer is indeed worse than.
Well, you say the period is really February to May?
The period of drought and shortage is really February to May in Jamaica.
Okay.
That's not the perception, but that's the statistical reality of our bimodal
It's the reality, yeah.
rainfall cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have had on occasion, I believe in 2013, and then certainly in 2022, we had 2 years where the May and June rains didn't come. So that may have given further credence to person's perception that it's a summer shortage, because when you layer in the drought, which would be biting by May, with the heat of June and July, you can understand the impression. Jamaica has conducted what's called a water resources master plan. So we've done a full analysis of all of our groundwater, all of our rivers, wetlands, rainfall patterns. And it's safe to say that despite the changing climate, and yes, there is some decline, Jamaica still has sufficient groundwater to supply its needs, both for potable water and irrigation. The challenge that you've had is that we didn't develop, in many times, nearest to our most reliable water sources. A lot of people will drive past a stream, drive past a river, and assume it is sufficient to carry a community without the sort of flow tests and reliability tests to determine what can be extracted safely from that river to see how many people can carry. So invariably, where we're built and where our capitals were built were really primarily, our major towns were built really were around access to farming, access to mining minerals, and access to ports from an export perspective, as opposed to where would be most suitable for population centers. Otherwise, we'd have built around the Martha Brae, the Roaring River, Black River, and Rio Cobre. Those would be your four primary population centers if we built it that in mind. But that's not quite how we developed. However, Jamaica has sufficient water. What we've not had is the sort of investment that you've needed post the 1940s, admittedly, to harness, store, process, and distribute potable water and irrigation water. So what we've been doing over the last 9 years is, firstly, we had to fix the National Water Commission. It used to be a huge drain on the national budget. We've been able to finish the last 3 years, albeit with small surpluses, but with surpluses nonetheless, and not the the sort of drain that it once was on the consolidated fund. And in fixing the Water Commission and giving greater focus on the National Irrigation Commission and the Rural Water Supply Limited, we have fixed and improved and increased access to potable water for over 350,000 Jamaicans over the last 9 years. Now, where we are now, at this particular point, because of good management of the economy, because of good management of the Water Commission, and through varying programs, the National Water Commission itself will be investing $10.1 billion into water supply systems this year. This is coming from 10 years ago, being in the range of $400 to $500 million. So it gives you an idea of the sort of improvement in the increase rather that we're putting to fixing our respective systems.
My apologies, Minister Samuda. We are up on a break. We'll be right back with more of what you have to tell us.
Sure.
The time by Grace Could Move is
7:45.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the part, travel far, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plugs, an air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze. La, 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 la.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and it's the second watch. We're looking on water storage, especially in Kingston, and of course looking at other areas of the nation and the options that are on the table. In so doing, we have online the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And he has been telling us so far about the progress that has been made and what are the plans in train. Please continue, Minister Samuda.
Sure. So I've just gotten to the point to highlighting the fact that the government this year would be investing close to 22 billion Jamaican dollars through the National Water Commission, through the Consolidated Fund, through Rural Water Supply Limited, through JSIF, through NHT, and through the Spark program. Whereas, you know, when we relay pipes, when we're paving new roads, we ensure that we relay old pipes, that they don't have the sort of breakage that we've been known for in the past. So we've firstly created the wherewithal to solve quite a bit of the problem. But as it relates to, you mentioned Kingston and St. Andrew and storage, we have signed a PPP and we've started construction on a $92 million water treatment plant in Content, St. Catherine. This will supply 15 million gallons of potable water daily to Spanish Town, Portmore, and southern St. Andrew into the western and central Kingston regions. Now, why this is important and what does 15 million gallons of water look like and where does this take us? A few facts that the public should be aware of. In 2015, we required 55 million gallons of water, potable water daily, to supply Kingston metropolitan area. Kingston and St. Andrew, rather. Now, that was because we had what was called an NRW, non-revenue water, leaking pipes, theft of close to 70%. The work we have done in Kingston, St. Andrew, to cut those leaks, we've cut those leaks and that theft in half. Now, we currently need, despite all development that has taken place in Kingston and St. Andrew in particular over the last 9 years, we currently need 38 million gallons daily for the Kingston and St. Andrew area.
Wow.
So you start to understand the importance of distribution while talking about storage. Because your storage is relative to your need.
Yeah.
So you understand that by cutting the leaks, you cut the need for significant increases in storage. Even though at that level, we still need significant increases in storage. But just wanted the listeners to understand the importance of the distribution network.
Yeah.
We have done the same work in Portmore, and we're expecting to start that sort of leak reduction work in Spanish Town, Old Harbour, and Maypen, as well as Montego Bay and Ocho Rios, I think later this year. We're in the final stages of a procurement project, or procurement process rather, for a national non-revenue water partner. So, but you're understanding that with cutting the leaks, you cut the need for additional storage because your storage ratio is based on your gallons per day. Now, this water treatment plant will supply 15 million gallons. The question will be asked, well, what is 50 million gallons and what is that related to our storage? Well, the first point of note is that 15 million gallons is a lot of water. But you'll recall, and I think we did an interview then, Reverend, in 2022 February. Kingston and St. Andrew was in the middle of its worst drought in history. Statistically, since we've been tracking water and rainfall, we had about 17% of our 30-year rainfall average in that month. And in your driest month, so you understand, you virtually had none. So the entire place was bone dry. And in that drought, Kingston and St. Andrew were short 12 million gallons of water per day in terms of its ability to supply its demand. So when you add 15 million gallons to the network, you understand the sort of improvement that you make. And this is not a system that requires particular storage based on how it's going to harness. But we do have major plans for storage, both in Kingston and St. Andrew, and I'd say generally across the country. Firstly, we conducted engineering assessment of Hermitage Dam last year. Hermitage Dam is close to 100 years old. It was built to last for 50. So we have to constantly assess its health. And we've also constantly assessed just how much water is in there because of the way it was built. It does accumulate quite a bit of silt. It is our intention to expand the capacity of both the Hermitage Dam and the Mona Reservoir. We're doing all the engineering assessments to determine the best way to achieve this. But we do intend, especially with Hermitage, to build a new wall.
Yeah, stick a pin right there, Minister, if you don't mind, because I'm seeing here that a report in one of the newspapers that you disclosed that the NWC will undertake a comprehensive review of the options for expanding what you just mentioned, the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam, during the upcoming fiscal year. Now, what's your response to those who are wondering if this review was done before, and if not, why has it taken so long?
It's been done periodically in terms of what would need to be done. In the 1920s, the then colonial government designed what was called the Mahogany Vale system, which intended to build a massive dam in Hagley Gap, which is on the boundary of Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Thomas in the hills. That was to amalgamate the Yalas River and the Negro River, that's actually where the two rivers meet. You'd have then built this massive dam and the piping system, which would have come down into what we know as the Yalas pipeline, as well as into the Hope facility. So the Mona Dam, built in the 1940s, was actually an amalgamation of a bigger system, which contemplated, and that's why the land was reserved, the building of a second reservoir beside it to be able to manage the volume of water that you'd have taken. So it's always been from the Public Works Department under the colonial government, the Public Works Department under our independent government and forward, it's always been the plan to expand the Mona Reservoir as per need. The Hermitage Dam was built in such a way where you can expand it by building another wall and pulling down this one at another stage, expanding some 200-300 meters out, which would significantly increase capacity. The simple answer as to why it has taken this long is because of our financial misadventures of the country. Over the last 60 years, you haven't had that wherewithal, either the space to borrow or certainly the space to spend. These things are a reflection of the state of your economy. So the state of the economy is now allowing you to contemplate some of these sorts of massive infrastructure. You couldn't contemplate $22 billion of water investment in a single year, or certainly over a budget cycle, maybe a year and a half. In the past, you wouldn't have had the space.
Is there an estimated cost, Minister, for conducting this comprehensive review? Can you share that with us?
The review that was done on the Hermitage Dam,
that was 150.
Was about $150 million. Dollars.
Right.
I expect the Mona review to be similarly costed based on what is expected to be undertaken. But just as a general cost, so that the public understands also, we have acknowledged that we needed some assistance in management of our water sector. Before his departure, Minister Clark and myself inked an agreement with the World Bank through its varying arms to conduct a comprehensive review of the water sector in Jamaica. And what that review showed is that for Jamaica to be water resilient with the changing climate, with the current state of its affairs, it would require $5 billion of infrastructure to make sure that we're water resilient for potable water, sewage, and indeed irrigation supply to our farmers. So we haven't sat back and said, boy, everything is rosy, we'll be fine, it's just a matter of money. We've also reached out for international help, and that international help is a part of how we're designing our way forward. So we've engaged the IFC, which is an arm of the World Bank, to help us with our PPPs, because the Rio Cobra one was spoken about for 15 years. We can't take 15 years for transactions of that size. We need 4 or 5 to be happening simultaneously if we're to transform our water production capacity the sort of investment that we need to make in our distribution systems, both for potable water and irrigation, require us to get through our public investment appraisal processes, not in 3 years, but in 6 months.
Yes.
So we're taking a comprehensive look on what is required.
And as you mentioned, comprehensive look. I've heard it time and time again that there are those who believe that what is simply needed are more dams and reservoirs to be built. And some go on to say that successive governments have been really kicking the can down the road. What's your response to that?
Successive governments have been broke. I don't
So
know
this
that
one,
there- I
this
don't know
one
that
is
there's
not.
well, this one has run the economy well and is now in a position to pay the dividends to citizens with a $40 billion spark program with $22 billion of water investment. But the reality is what we need in this country is to add zeros to those numbers because that's how far behind we are in many categories. However, it's not simply the dams.
Yeah.
So they're right and wrong at the same time. Jamaica has insufficient storage. We have less storage per capita than our neighbors to the north in Cuba, who would have stopped developing particular levels of infrastructure because of their embargo for some 50 years. So it tells you just how far behind we are in a number of categories. But the first and most critical priority is the restoration of our distribution network. There's a standard that if a pipe breaks 4 times in a year, you're supposed to replace it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure many of your listeners can point to roads that say, but it broke 4 times last week or last month.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot determine our true storage needs until we resolve much of our distribution issues. We're still at 37% leakage in Kingston and St. Andrew, having cut it in half.
37, you said?
Yes, sir.
37.
But you have places like Hanover
Wow.
that are at 71.
What?
Our non-revenue scores in Jamaica generally are over 60%. It is only in Portmore and Kingston with the work that we've done over the last 9 years that
Leakage.
we've brought it down. So yes, they're right. We do need more dams. We need more reservoirs. But we also need a new distribution network. It's why in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, the government will break ground on a water distribution line from the Martha Brae to the terminal reservoir in St. James. I'm sure your listeners in St. James can tell you of the water challenges they've had in many areas, certainly the eastern side of the parish, because that line breaks constantly. That line pumps 60% of the water coming from the Martha Brae into St. James into the ground. So in replacing that line into terminal reservoir, all of a sudden, you'll have that 60% of water returned to the availability for citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, we'll break ground on a line from the Great River Treatment Plant. Really, we'll start somewhere in the Lucy region and head all the way to Western Westmoreland by way of Negril. So these 2 transmission lines are part of what we call the Western Water Resilience Project. This will be approximately $27 billion of pipeline work. So it sort of gives you we're spending the first 5 this year, but it gives you the idea of just what is needed to upgrade the distribution network. But I'm not here telling you that we're not planning on doing the work on storage. And I want the listeners to understand that there's both primary, secondary, and tertiary storage. Primary storage is your big reservoirs and dams.
Mm-hmm.
We're analyzing actively which one should come first by way of the Hermitage and the Mona system. My own view, and I expect the engineering to show that it will be the rebuild of Hermitage first, which will significantly increase capacity, perhaps by as much as 200%. I believe that one will be the first major national storage program. But the citizens in Rock River, Clarendon can tell you that we've just completed land acquisition and we're doing pipe work because we'll be building a reservoir there. We will be expanding the terminal reservoir and the Appleton system storage system as primary storage facilities.
And the secondary is what? Quickly.
Secondary is
we don't
community
have much
tanks.
time. Mm-hmm.
Over the next 5 years, we're going to build over 100 new secondary tanks, meaning tanks from 100,000 gallons to 2 million gallons right throughout the hilly interior of Jamaica. So when it is cheaper to pump up to your tanks, we'll pump up and then gravity feed for the rest of the time.
And the third category, Minister, we're out of time now.
Third category is the household tanks. It's why the government is actively distributing 10,000 black tanks to families most in need right now, and we are about 40% of the way through that distribution.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I think you have given us some information there that should make us be more assured that things are going to be looking better as the months go by. Thanks for joining us, Minister Samud. All the best. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information on how to get copies of this program Call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This, of course, has been the Morning Watch. Thanks our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I'm Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and of course, watchful as I return you to Love in the Morning.
Time on Love 101 is now 8 a.m. and you're now invited